This course is focused on creating accessible applications in Montgomery County. I'm Thomas Logan, and I am the owner of Equal Entry, an organization that has been working with the county for several years to assist in making the technologies accessible for everyone. I also hold the Certified Professional in Web Accessibility credential from the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. The CPWA recognizes advanced knowledge of digital accessibility standards and best practices, combining both technical expertise and accessibility management skills. The main goal of this training is to review existing Montgomery County applications, highlight issues identified through our auditing process, and discuss how those issues can be addressed. We'll be walking through a number of examples, and I'm also introducing something new in today's course to make it more interactive. We'll see what you think, but for each of the accessibility criteria we cover today, I've prepared some short music-related examples to make them easier to remember. If you're new to accessibility, you may not realize just how many requirements there are. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, often referred to as WCAG, contain 50 different success criteria that define what it means for digital content to be accessible. First, we will look at the accessibility auditing process that Equal Entry uses when auditing applications in the county. I'd like to walk you through some of the work we've done with Chris Daniels' group in Montgomery County. To date, we've completed more than 55 accessibility audits of county technology. All of these audit reports are available on the county's SharePoint site in the accessibility page at mcgov.sharepoint.com. It's important to understand that accessibility isn't a one-and-done effort. It's an ongoing practice. Applications evolve, standards change, and new content is added, so you always need to be testing and evaluating to make sure things continue to work for everyone. With more than 55 audits already completed, you have a substantial set of materials to review and build on as you continue strengthening accessibility across county applications. When we work with you, Equal Entry's process for reporting accessibility issues is to classify them into 5 categories: blocking, major, minor, advisory, and third-party vendor issues. Blocking issues are the most severe. These are the problems you should address first because they prevent a person with a disability from completing a critical task or using a key feature of your application. For example, if someone can't finish a required step in a form or process, that would be a blocking issue. Major issues also have a significant impact on users, but they may not be part of the core workflow. Sometimes there may be a documented workaround or an alternate way to complete the task, but the issue still creates barriers. Minor issues are situations where an element technically fails the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level A or AA standards, but has little or no meaningful impact on the user's ability to complete a task. Even so, these should still be addressed, since they can sometimes affect the overall user experience in negative ways. Advisory issues are best practices that go beyond the formal WCAG requirements. Addressing these makes applications easier and more enjoyable to use, and can help create a great experience for all users. Third-party vendor issues relate to components or services that are not developed by Montgomery County. For example, functionality that comes from an outside vendor. When we find these issues in an audit, we'll work with you on how to report them to the vendor's development team so they can be addressed. Here you can see a quick screenshot of a single issue, but in practice we provide you with a complete spreadsheet. Each issue is listed as a numbered ID. Sometimes there may be 30, other times 100 or more, depending on the size of the application. Every issue is reported as its own line item or row with key details to help you address it. For Montgomery County specifically, we've recently added a help URL field to the audit reports. This field links directly to your county intranet portal, where we've compiled best practices, examples, and guidance developed over the years of our working relationship. This resource is tailored specifically to Montgomery County, so you'll find solutions that are relevant to your environment and applications. Whenever you see that help URL, that's your go-to place for more information. Here's an example of a major issue we found in a recent audit of a Montgomery County application. In this case, we looked at the Submit Service Request button. The problem was that the button did not change its appearance when it received keyboard focus. For someone navigating the application with a keyboard, this means the focus is invisible. They can't tell where they are on the page. That makes it much harder and sometimes impossible to use the application effectively. In the report, we document this by describing the issue, linking directly to the form where it occurs, and outlining the exact steps we followed to identify it. From there, we work with you and your team on how to fix the problem. Once you've made the fix, we verify it. If the issue is resolved, we update its status from major to fixed, and it comes off the list of accessibility issues that need attention. This is the kind of practical feedback loop, finding, documenting, fixing, and confirming, that ensures your applications steadily become more accessible over time. This screenshot shows an example of an issue related to a third-party tool. Third-party tools, things like Wufoo, Seamless Docs, or SurveyMonkey, can be embedded on county pages and in county applications. But since they aren't developed by the county, they're handled a little differently in the audit process. When we identify issues in third-party products, we log them and report them directly to the vendor. Over the past couple of years, we've also developed email templates and reporting formats that you can use to communicate with vendors. Through our work with Montgomery County, we've even been able to engage directly with many of these companies to help get issues addressed. Each third-party report includes the date we notified the vendor, details about the issue, steps to reproduce it, and a request for a tracking or follow-up mechanism. That last piece is important because a big challenge with accessibility is that if issues aren't reported or if no one follows up, vendors may assume their products are fine. The good news is that we've seen real progress in recent years. With growing awareness of accessibility requirements and legal obligations, more vendors are taking these reports seriously and resolving issues in a timely way. Still, it's essential that we continue following up with them to ensure accessibility fixes don't stall out. To keep things simple for today's class, we're going to begin with one of the most important areas for application developers, ensuring that automated accessibility checks pass on your web pages and applications. Download and install the Accessibility Insights plugin from the web address accessibilityinsights.io. It's completely free to download. I navigate to the Downloads link. I activate Add to Chrome button. And then on the Accessibility Insights for web page, I activate Add to Chrome button again. I activate Add Extension. Once I've completed the installation, I should see a notification. Accessibility Insights for Web has been added to Chrome. There are also step-by-step installation instructions available on the county's accessibility portal. Once it's properly installed, you should see the Accessibility Insights logo, a heart icon with a magnifying glass on top of it, in your browser. Now we can try using the plugin on an application. I navigate to the county's Recycling and Trash Collection Day lookup page. I first need to activate the button in the toolbar to run Accessibility Insights on this page. Next, I activate the FastPass option. The FastPass will run automated tests on your page. On this page, it reports 3 failed instances or accessibility issues. We will review each of these 3 issues later in the training. Getting to 0 failed instances is a quick win and an essential part of demonstrating your commitment to accessibility. Constituents using your applications won't believe accessibility is a priority if obvious automated errors remain. And while automated tools don't catch everything, they do identify many critical issues, including some blocking ones. So this is a powerful place to start. If you take only one thing away from today's session, let it be this: make Accessibility Insights part of your regular development workflow. Every time you check in code or make a change, run the tool. Once you've fixed these issues, they typically don't come back, although it's always possible for new issues to appear with future code changes, which is why ongoing checks are important. The second testing tool I want to emphasize is the importance of making sure your application works fully with the keyboard. As I mentioned earlier, WCAG has 50 success criterion, and it can feel overwhelming at first. But in my experience, one of the most effective starting points is ensuring complete keyboard access. Without that, it's difficult to even begin addressing many of the other accessibility requirements. One of the most common failures we see in web applications is features that require a mouse or that are unnecessarily difficult to operate with the keyboard. This usually happens because the people who design and develop these systems don't personally rely on keyboard navigation. It works fine for them with a mouse, so they assume it works fine for everyone. But accessibility is about making sure it works for everyone. For example, someone who is paralyzed from the waist up may rely on voice commands to control their computer. Those commands often translate into keyboard inputs like press tab, press enter, or press the up arrow. Similarly, people who are blind or have low vision typically don't use a mouse pointer. They navigate entirely by keyboard, often with a screen reader. That's why keyboard access is such a critical foundation. If your application can be fully and smoothly navigated with a keyboard, you're already addressing some of the most common accessibility barriers. Combined with running accessibility insights, this approach helps eliminate the low-hanging fruit issues that come up again and again in our audits. Now let's dive into our first topic, page titles. The page title is the name or label associated with your application at the top level. It should clearly indicate where a user is within a sequence of pages. Some applications are just a single page, while others may have 3 to 5 steps. Common accessibility failures include a page having no title at all, though even more common is that multiple pages within the same application share the exact same title. In the county, there is currently an issue where only a generic title is used, Montgomery County MD, across many different pages. The fix is simple. Each page needs a unique, descriptive title. While preparing for this training, I bookmarked 2 different applications. Both had that same page title, Montgomery County, Maryland. If I wanted to quickly open the one related to taxes versus the one related to police services, I wouldn't know which bookmark to choose. Without a clear page title, users may not understand how to navigate or distinguish between applications. Automated tools like Accessibility Insights can catch when there is no page title at all, but they cannot determine whether each page has a unique and meaningful title. That requires your human assessment. In a recent audit of the Call and Ride CNR complaint or supervisor request form, the page title was simply Montgomery County MD 311 answering to you. That is not specific enough. The user will want to know which form they are on. A better title would be CNR complaint or supervisor request -311 Montgomery County, MD. We recommend following the documented page title formatting guidance in the county's UX standards. This helps ensure consistency and clarity across all applications. This section of the Web Accessibility Guide focuses on page titles. Each section in the guide is organized with a hierarchy. The page title is the name of the guideline, and the related issue that might be reported is context is not supported via a unique title. In practice, this means every page must have a clear descriptive title. Title should tell users what the page is about in a straightforward way. This helps people using screen readers, and it also ensures that search results are meaningful.
Every page needs a name, don't leave it blank. Tell them what you're about, be straight and frank. Screen readers sing it, search results will show it. Every page needs a name, now you know it. 2.4.2, that's the rule to follow through. Every page needs a name, it's the right thing to do.
The next guideline is about allowing page zoom. This is a relatively easy issue to identify and fix. When you see viewport attributes like user scalable equal no or maximum scale equal 1.0, they block a user's ability to zoom. That removes essential functionality and violates accessibility expectations. People must be able to enlarge content, typically up to at least 200% without loss of content or functionality. You can test for this error by using Accessibility Insights. We click on Accessibility Insights, click on FastPass, and we can see this item here, ensure meta name viewport does not disable text scaling and zooming. So we need to fix that issue on this page. Use an accessible viewport instead. Replace restrictive settings with this. Meta name equal viewport, content equal width equal device dash width, initial scale equal 1.0. This line of code will fix the issue and cause the error to go away.
200%, that's all I'm asking for. Double up the size so I can read once more. No special tools required, just let the text expand. 200%, help me understand. Scale it up, make those letters grand. 200% is where I need to land.
The next important step is setting the language for your content. This is easy to implement but also easy to overlook. Every page should have a language specified, such as English or Spanish, using the lang attribute. A common failure is leaving the page without any language set at all. Another common issue is when content switches languages within the same page. For example, most of the page might be in English, but one section might be in Spanish. In that case, you should set the overall language on the HTML element and then add lang attributes on specific elements where the language changes. This ensures that screen readers and other assistive technologies can correctly pronounce and process the content. Let me give you an example. Imagine a city council member's page that includes sections in Spanish. If the language attribute is not set, a screen reader may try to read the Spanish text as if it were English. The result is difficult to understand. It sounds like someone who doesn't speak Spanish attempting to read it aloud. Let's look at an example.
Centro de Recursos para Inmigrantes Gilchrist. El Centro del Condado de Montgomery ofreciendo recursos para inmigrantes. Ofrece clases de inglés y pre...
Wow, that sounds horrible.
El Centro del Condado de Montgomery ofreciendo recursos para inmigrantes. Ofrece clases de inglés y preparación ciudadanía, provee referencias a programas y servicios, y comparte.
That sounds much better. This is why setting the correct lang attribute is so important. It allows assistive technologies to switch pronunciation rules and read the content naturally. When the page has only part in Spanish, the section of the page in Spanish should have the lang attribute set. In this example, the div element should have the lang attribute set to ES, which means the content contains Spanish. You can find more information about this requirement in the Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards. Look for the sections on language of page and languages not defined programmatically. These explain why setting the lang attribute is essential and provide detailed guidance. Now let's move into forms accessibility. Many of the applications in the county are form-based, so this is a critical area. We won't cover every aspect today, but the starting point is straightforward. Make sure forms include clear instructions on how to complete them. Ensure every form field and element has an associated label. Confirm that all controls support programmatic access so they work properly with screen readers and other assistive technologies. The good news is that most county web applications already use native HTML5 form elements such as form, input, label, field set, legend, select, and option. These elements are designed with accessibility support built in, so using them correctly provides a solid foundation. The challenge comes when forms are built with custom code, using div or span elements along with JavaScript and CSS to mimic buttons, sliders, or other controls. These custom components often introduce accessibility barriers. They may look good visually, but they require significant extra work to make them operable with screen readers, keyboards, and other assistive technologies. In many third-party applications we review, this is one of the most common issues we have to document: custom form controls that don't behave like true form elements. Let's look at labeling form fields. Here's an example from the inaccessible gallery on the web. There's a sign-up form with 4 input boxes and a submit button. For someone that can see the page, because the labels are hidden, it's not possible to guess what belongs in each box. This simulation shows what it's like for a person using a screen reader a lot of the time on the web. Without proper labels, those fields are announced simply as edit box, edit box, edit box. The user is left to guess what information is required. This highlights why labeling is so important. Every input field needs a clear, programmatically associated label. That way, assistive technologies can communicate what each field is for, ensuring that users can complete the form successfully without confusion. We've even seen this kind of issue on county pages, such as the recycling and trash page. The solution is straightforward. Provide clear instructions and labels for all form fields. On the recycling and trash collection day lookup page, we have an issue about labels. Select name. Ensure the select element has an accessible name. Accessibility Insights has highlighted in red where this error was identified. Street type, a select element, is failing the rule for select having a name or label. One quick way to check if labels are correctly associated manually is to use your mouse to click on the label itself. If the label is properly associated, the cursor will move into the related input field. For example, clicking on street name moves focus into the street name field. When I click on street type, focus does not move. This mouse click technique for verifying labels is a quick way to see that your code is not working correctly. The fix is straightforward. The for attribute for the label element must match the ID of the element being labeled. Here we see that the label for attribute is CT100 underscore main content underscore text street. But the select elements ID is CT100 underscore main content underscore drop down list 1. By copying the ID attribute value and moving it into the for attribute, now the for attribute value matches the value of the select elements ID. Now when we click with our mouse pointer, we can see focus moves to the select element as expected. And if we rerun Accessibility Insights, we can see that that issue no longer appears. You can find more information about this requirement in the Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards. Look under Labels or Instructions, and Control has no programmatic name or label. These sections explain the importance of providing clear, programmatically associated labels so that all users can complete forms successfully.
Label me right, show me the way, tell me what information to display. Instructions clear, no room for doubt. That's what accessibility is about. Label me right, and I'll understand exactly what the form demands.
Another important form feature is speeding up text entry, which can be achieved by setting the autocomplete attribute for controls. Some county forms only have a few fields, but many have 15, 20, or even more. That's where the autocomplete attribute becomes especially valuable. Users who don't type with a traditional keyboard, such as people using sip and puff devices or switch controls, can take 10 to 30 seconds to enter a single character. For them, completing a long form could take hours. Autocomplete helps by allowing information like first name, last name, street address, phone number, credit card details, organization, or job title to be filled in automatically. Adding the autocomplete attribute makes this association programmatic. Here's an example. Input type equal email, and autocomplete attribute also set to email. Not every browser assistive technology will fill in for every field, but support is improving, and this feature can dramatically reduce effort for users with motor disabilities. Autocomplete is one area that automated tools like Accessibility Insights can't fully scan for you. Instead, this requires reviewing your form fields and checking the documentation. The Web Accessibility Guidelines include a list of supported values for the autocomplete attribute. Each one has a defined purpose. For example, given-name corresponds to a first name. Family-name corresponds to a last name. CC-num is used for credit card numbers. Here's another advisory best practice that supports a wide range of users. Many of the people we serve may not speak English as their first language. Others may have cognitive disabilities that make reading form field labels difficult. One way to make forms more intuitive is to use icons alongside text labels. For example, a phone icon next to the phone number field, or a house icon next to the address field, or a house icon next to the address field. These icons provide an additional cue. Even if someone can't read the label easily, the icon helps them understand what information is being requested. There is not yet a standardized set of icons for form fields, but using familiar, consistent symbols can make a big difference. This practice is not a formal requirement, but it's a valuable way to improve accessibility and usability for people with cognitive disabilities. You can find more information about this requirement in the Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards. Look under Identify Input Purpose, and then go to Known Input Field Type Missing Autocomplete Attribute.
But when fields know their purpose, your browser remembers well. Auto fills your address, your name it can tell. From given name to family name, each field has its own code. Tel for telephone, email for that digital road. Motor challenges, cognitive load, or language you don't know. The icons speak universally, helping info flow.
Now let's talk about identifying landmarks in applications. Landmarks are structural elements that make navigation easier. For people who are blind, the visual hierarchy of a page isn't available. They rely on assistive technology to quickly move between common areas of the page. When landmarks are missing, a screen reader user may not know where the main section of the page begins. This creates unnecessary confusion and slows down navigation. When adding landmarks, keep in mind less is more. Ideally, a page should have about 5 to 7 landmarks. If you add too many, it becomes difficult for users to navigate efficiently. They'll have to sift through unnecessary regions instead of quickly finding what they need. Also, avoid repeating the landmark's role in its label. For example, if you have a navigation region, don't label it navigation navigation. Instead, just provide a clear description, like breadcrumb or main site. Screen readers typically announce landmarks in a way similar to what's shown in Accessibility Insights visualization. So think about how the combination of role and label will actually sound to users. Let's look at how to test landmarks in your application using Accessibility Insights. From Accessibility Insights, activate the Ad Hoc Tools item. Here we can use the Alt-Shift-2 keyboard shortcut, or we can turn on with our mouse this landmarks feature. Now we will have highlighting on the screen of where the landmarks are on our page. You can see a banner at the top, navigation landmark here for where the nav menu is, but the main content area is missing. We need that to be marked up so that a user knows where the main content of the page begins and ends. If we inspect the code, we can find this div that contains the body of the page does not have a landmark defined. One way to set this is to add role equal main. And now that will be identified as the main section of the page. Alternatively, you can use the HTML5 main element, which is the preferred approach. However, if your site already relies on CSS or JavaScript tied to that div, adding the role equal main attribute is the minimally invasive way to make the region programmatically identifiable. Either approach ensures screen reader users can jump directly to the main content. You can find more information in the Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards under the Info and Relationships section. Specifically, content does not specify landmarks for major regions. Another important concept is grouping related controls. Visually, it's often clear when controls belong together, but unless they're grouped programmatically, screen reader users won't know that they are set. The most common failure happens with radio buttons. For example, a form might ask, "Do you want to be contacted by someone from the county?" with yes and no options. Without grouping, a screen reader may only announce yes or no without context, leaving the user unsure what questions they're answering. The correct way to handle this is to use the field set and legend elements. The field set wraps the related controls, and the legend provides the question or label for the group. You can find more information about this item in the Info and Relationships section. Underneath, individual radio button options are not programmatically associated as a group.
A form field needs a label, not just nearby text. Tables need their headers, relationships connect. Visual presentations, just the start. The code must tell the story for every single part. Structure in the code, not just what you see. Relationships that work programmatically.
Next, let's talk about logical focus order. For users navigating with a keyboard or screen reader, the order of focus is critical. If the focus doesn't move in a logical sequence, it's easy for users to lose track of where they are on the page. A common failure is when the Submit button receives focus before all the required form fields. For example, a user might hear, first name, last name, submit. At that point, they would think the form is complete, even though several more required fields are still further down the page. The solution is to ensure that the focus order matches the visual and logical reading order. All form fields should be accessible before the Submit button, and navigation should flow consistently from top to bottom and left to right, unless there's a clear intentional reason to do otherwise. For example, moving from first name to last name, and then jumping up to home and privacy, and then moving down, skipping over fields to phone number, email address, and web URL. You can see this is not a logical order. We do not want to use tab index attribute values other than 0 or -1. So one of the ways that we get elements to be out of focus order is by using positive values for the tab index. In this example of a customer login form, tab index equal 1 and tab index equal 2 were used. Because we were individually numbering the focus order, we accidentally skipped over the comments field. The best way to avoid this is to never use tab index values unless you needed to put something in the focus order with tab index equals 0. It should just receive its focus order from the position that you've placed it in the document object model. Objects that occur earlier in the document object model will receive keyboard focus first, and objects that come later in the document object model will receive focus later. On this screenshot, we show the focus order correctly set with the first name field receiving focus, the last name field receiving focus, phone number, email address, web URL, and assistive technology. Visually, we're showing that the focus is moving top down the form from the first element in the form receiving focus sequentially until we get to the last element in the form. And this is what we always want to see on whatever type of application we're building, is that focus moves logically left to right and down the page. Accessibility Insights includes a very helpful tab stops feature. You can turn this on from the Ad Hoc Tools menu and turning on the Tab Stops button. Before testing, we first need to come to our page and refresh the page. Then we should enable Tab Stops. Click into the address bar so that you're sure the keyboard focus will start immediately at the beginning of your application. Tab from the address bar down into the application. We see here on the top of the screen, the first element that receives keyboard focus is Montgomery County, Maryland, a hyperlink. This is the first element on the page, and this is now the first element that received focus. I press the tab key again. Accessibility Insights will draw a purple arrow showing you the movement of the keyboard focus to the next element. In this case, it moves to the right and activates the MC311 hyperlink. We press tab again. It moves down the page to the Department of Environmental Protection heading in the page. Press tab again. We move to a search box, and we can continue pressing tab on the page, watching the Accessibility Insights tool number the keyboard focus on our page. And as we do this test, we're looking to make sure every element that needs to be interacted with by the user does receive keyboard focus and that it's in a logical order. So this page looks like it's doing quite well. In a separate test, very similar to running this tool, but just only using the keyboard itself, we should do the main operation of the tool to see that we can control everything that needs to be done in the application only using the keyboard. So in this case, I needed to select from a set of radio buttons and control a quantity combo box. And now I need to add this to my cart using a button. If I press the Enter key, this process is really simple. Never touch your mouse and see if you can do everything within your application only using the keyboard. You can find more information about this requirement in the Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards underneath Focus Order and Logical Focus Order isn't provided.
Screen reader users need that flow intact. Magnify users see just park, that's fact. Model dialogues trap the focus track. Close them out, then focus bounces back. Don't let tab index break the natural pack. Random jumping makes the users crack. Keep relationships on the right track. Webber, accessibility's got your back. Focus order, bazooka.
Next, let's talk about using more than color to communicate information. If color is the only way information is conveyed, people who cannot perceive color or who have difficulty distinguishing certain colors will miss that information. A common example in forms is using red text alone to show an error, or green text alone to show success. Another common area is maps, where information is often represented only through color. The solution is simple. You can still use color, but you must also provide another indicator, such as text, symbols, or shapes. For example, show a red error message with both color and text, like error, please enter your email address. Or use an icon, such as a check mark, along with green text to indicate success. In short, color should enhance information, not be the only way that it is communicated. Here's an example from the Commercial Building Design Consultation page. This is an example of instructions that rely only on sensory characteristics, in this case, color. The page tells the user, select an available date shown in blue highlights. Red highlights indicate the registration is full for the day. That works visually, but it doesn't provide equal access for users who can't perceive color differences. This issue falls under the guideline against relying on a single sensory characteristic to communicate information. It's not just about color. Similar problems arise when instructions say things like select the option on the left or click the circle below. Users who cannot perceive layout or shape the same way may not know what to do. The bottom line, never rely on color, position, or shape alone to communicate critical information. Always provide an additional indicator. The correct approach is to combine color with another cue. For example, you can use icons or shading patterns so the information is conveyed in more than one way. In the example on screen, I added a black circle in addition to the blue color to indicate a date is available. Another option would be to label available dates as available in text, in addition to the blue highlight. For unavailable dates, you could add the text label full, in addition to the red highlight. You can find more information about this standard underneath Web Accessibility Guidelines and Standards. Use of color relies on single sensory characteristics.
Your design must speak through channels more than one. Numbers next to colors in your charts and graphs. Multiple pathways lead to understanding's path. Beyond the colors, beyond the rainbow's art. Use text and symbols, reach every beating heart. When red means required, add a star beside.
Another best practice is providing and documenting keyboard shortcuts in your applications. Keyboard shortcuts are vital for users who rely on keyboards or alternative input devices rather than a mouse. They allow for faster navigation, reduce physical effort, and give users with mobility impairments or repetitive strain injuries an efficient way to interact with complex interfaces. This matters because not all users rely on a mouse. Some only use the keyboard or other assistive technologies to navigate your application. Keyboard shortcuts improve efficiency, reduce effort, and make complex applications more usable. Some common failures are that some applications provide no keyboard alternatives for mouse-only actions. Shortcuts may exist, but they aren't documented, leaving users unaware of them. The best practice is to make sure you have keyboard shortcuts for frequent or repetitive tasks. Make your shortcuts discoverable by documenting them in the interface, a help menu, or a pop-up. Ensure that your shortcuts follow standard conventions. In this example on the slide, the File Explorer lists common shortcuts in a data table with keys and actions clearly paired. This is a model for how applications should document shortcuts, organized, visible, and easy to reference. The example here is from Google Maps. Notice how they provide a dedicated pop-up listing all available shortcuts. Users can quickly see commands for moving the map, zooming in and out, switching views, and rotating or tilting the map. By offering these shortcuts and making the documentation easy to find, Google Maps ensures that people who cannot use a mouse still have full access to the same functionality.
I wake up in the morning, reach for my keyboard C. 2.1.1, that's my accessibility. No mouse required, just my fingertips in motion. Every click, every drag needs keyboard devotion. Screen reader humming while I navigate the page. Don't need to see the pointer, keyboard is my stage.
Now we will review the key takeaways of this course. The first takeaway is to focus on reaching 0 failed instances in your automated accessibility checks. Using accessibility insights regularly in your development process is a must. This is the best starting point for meeting the county's accessibility goals. In preparing for this training, we found that most applications at the county have at least one failed automated check on their page, and some have 3, 4, or more. For every automated check that Accessibility Insights identifies, there is supporting documentation in the county's accessibility resources with guidance on how to fix it. If you ever find that documentation is missing or unclear, let us know so we can improve it. The goal is to make it as straightforward as possible for you to resolve issues and achieve zero failed instances on the applications you work on. The second priority is the keyboard. In addition to reviewing the audit reports you receive, make it a habit to test your applications using only the keyboard. Confirm that the focus flows in a logical order. You can always see where the focus is, and every function can be completed without touching the mouse. If you navigate and operate your application entirely with the keyboard, you've already gone a long way toward ensuring accessibility. We have a compliance deadline of April 24th of next year, when all applications must meet WCAG 2.1 AA conformance. Think of that date as an important milestone, but not the end of the journey. Accessibility is ongoing, and there will always be opportunities to improve. The key areas to prioritize right now are the ones we've highlighted: achieving zero failed automated checks and accessibility insights, ensuring full keyboard accessibility. These areas will be under the most scrutiny going forward, so focusing on them now puts us in the strongest position for compliance. The issues we've covered today are the ones we've most commonly seen in applications. For further reference, we encourage you to use the Web Accessibility Testing Guide. Another excellent resource is the UK government's accessibility site, gov.uk. In my opinion, it's one of the best examples of how to structure forms and present government services accessibly. Thank you for your time learning from this course about creating accessible applications.